So with all this being said, let's get to the last segment, one of my favorite segments, my engineering the pitcher segment. And today I want to talk about one of my recent obsessions, and it actually has to do. It started me thinking when we did the last podcast. When we did the last podcast on the grips and the spin and the way the fingers have to approach be on the seams and the way the hand has to grip the ball. One of the things I realized is that we always talk about being behind the ball, and we always talk about getting out in front of your front leg, getting your hand closer to the plate. And we always talk about that. That's a conversation. But one of the dots that I connected after our last podcast was if a pitcher has a style of pitching that is more vertical or his arm is not as out in front as it should be for whatever reason, and there's a lot of reasons that can go into that part of the pitching motion, he doesn't have room, actually enough space in his arm to do the critical things that have to happen in order for that ball to roll up at exactly the right time so he can pull on the ball in exactly the way he wants. So I started thinking about the issue of location and velocity. Again, another reason why getting over the front leg, giving the arm plenty of room to do its job is how we improve the pitch. So I had two pitchers that I started working with on this concept. I cannot tell you the success of working with this issue. So I want to talk about getting out over the front leg. I want to give you a drill, which you've seen before. And I also want to give you a method for training this component. So in this segment, I like to talk about how do we engineer the pitching motion? How do we engineer the pitcher to actually be able to have the skill that he needs to have an effective delivery? So remember, everyone, you go to Angel Borrelli Pitching on YouTube. You can not only listen to the podcast there, but you can go to what's called the teaching moment. It'll be right next to the episode, and you can easily see the photos and the videos that we're talking about. So, Larry, I want you to open up the video I sent you called the follow through drill.
Got it.
Okay, so this is he's actually a catcher, and I had him do this drill for me. And what I asked him to do was just get into the follow through position. So this drill here is designed to teach the pitcher how to get over his front leg. So what I want to bring your attention to for this part of the training is to look at the front leg. So when he is doing the motion, you'll notice that as he goes over the front leg, his shoulders are actually out in front of his landing foot, and his knee is over his ankle. Now, the thing I want you to look at is I want you to look at the height of his thigh on his left leg.
Gotcha.
Now, the height of the thigh of the front leg is a very critical feature to the ability of that foot to transfer energy into the rest of the body. So when the pitcher lands, energy goes up through the foot, into the lower leg, in through the upper leg, and then into the pelvis, into the rotation, which ends up in the shoulder, passing it on through the elbow to the wrist. That's the chain of events. If the front thigh is not stabilized at an angle that's similar to this, and let's talk about this. If the leg is completely straight, like it is when you're standing, we'll call that a straight leg. If you look at him in his follow through, he's completely flexed in the hip. His leg straightened up a little more. Where you want the pitcher to land is halfway between, if he's down in a lunge, let's say, and you see his thigh completely parallel to the ground, that's too low. And pitchers that sink that low, they lose energy. The halfway mark between that, so we'll call it a 45-degree angle above the knee to a straight leg, is where a pitcher lands. And as he goes over, as you'll see him doing, Scott doing, he actually straightens his leg a little bit more as he comes over the leg. So this angle of the thigh is what I want to talk about today. The ability of the pitcher to land. keep the angle of that thigh consistent as he turns so that he can go over the leg, and he's got the thigh consistent and that makes the knee stay over the ankle. So the ankle and the knee have to be over each other, and the thigh has to be at a consistent angle, because if the angle doesn't stay consistent, he's not going to be able to straighten it up a little more and then get way out in front. And you can see, even though this is a drill, how far out in front his hand is. And that's determined by how far out in front his shoulder actually is, because remember, the arm is connected to the shoulder. Now, to talk about the problems here, I want you to open up the second thing I sent you.
Okay.
Now, this is a before and after still shot.
Right.
Now, this is actually active pitching, and this is the same pitcher. Now, on the left is a very common flaw we see with the upper thigh. And we see this very frequently. We see how the knee is not over the ankle on the left picture?
Right.
Okay. And his back leg is off.
Yeah.
Okay, so we like the foot down. Some pitchers pull it off quickly, but what we don't want to see is the knee straightening, moving backward means he lost his angle of his thigh. He's pulling the knee backward, which means his body weight is way behind the foot. Look where his hand is at. And the correction of this problem, this actually is him. You can actually see the ball. He released a ball. He's doing a drill, but he released a ball. See the difference in his leg with the ankle and the knee and that stabilized thigh?
Mm-hmm. His left foot, right? His left leg.
Yes. Yeah, we're talking about how far out in front he is. Do you see the difference in how far out in front his hand is?
Mm-hmm.
On the release than the picture on the left?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Now, Larry, the reason why pitchers have this problem is pitchers usually started hitting when they were a little kid, and they were hitting more than they were pitching. And hitters straighten the front knee to keep their weight back to stabilize the hit, correct?
Right. Uh-huh.
They weight shift and then they pull it back. That's why we see pitchers having this bad habit of pulling the knee backwards, it is not correct. Medically, it's not right. Physical therapists will tell you the knee has to be over the ankle. But because in baseball, when the pitcher is on 2 feet, he straightens the knee backwards because he's trying to keep his weight backwards. He doesn't move forward with the bat the way the pitcher does. So if you have a front leg that looks like you're swinging a bat, well, you're doing exactly what the hitter's doing. You're keeping your weight backward. And what do we want? We want weight going behind the ball, right?
Correct.
So this is a common flaw. And the way that I investigated this is I had each pitcher. I actually did this with one of my pitchers. I had him get on the mound, and I had him put his leg down very low, and I had him just release the ball over his leg. Then I asked him to raise it up, and he was doing a drill. So he actually was in the position of this photo on the right. So I had him raise it up a little bit. Then I had him go over his front leg and just do the pitching motion. Then I had him raise it up more, and I said, where do you want your front leg? And the rule was that he had to have a configuration that looked like the photo on the left or on the right.
Mm-hmm.
We designed where he could get over his leg the best, and it was not where he was pitching at. It was much higher. So that is how I determined what is the best height for this pitcher. Normally it's around 45 degrees, but everybody's got a different body. So what you want to do is get your pitchers doing that first drill. And if you see that they're a little low, have them pick up the leg, and then with your eye say, okay, this is where I want your leg. Now, you have him do that drill with that leg so he can build this knowledge of the skill. Then you take him into the gym. You tell your strength coach that you want him to do squats, parallel stance squats, where his feet are shoulder width apart, the same stance he would have if he were going to do a lunge.
Mm-hmm.
and you have them do a squat. Of course, the bar's on their shoulders, and you have them descend to the height that you want that leg at. You have them descend to that. It's not going to be far down. You have them hold it for 6 seconds, which is an isometric hold. And then you have them come to the top and you have them do 10 to 12 reps with 6-second isometric holds. Now, the reason why we do this is because isometric strength, and this is, let me say it and then I'll explain it. Isometric strength is specific to the angle at which you train that strength. So if I want him to be strong at a 45-degree angle and I train him isometrically there, he will get stronger at that angle. It will not make him stronger at a 70-degree angle. It will not make him stronger at an 80-degree angle or a 40-degree. It'll make him strong at that angle. Then you follow it up with sets where he descends to that level and comes up. He descends so he can find it and come up. It is harder to keep the leg up higher, which is required to get over the front leg. Because the lower it is, the further you're down backward. It is harder to keep the leg up because gravity is pulling you down. So when you see a pitcher land at a certain height, but he ends up pitching at a lower height, he wasn't strong enough to resist gravity. And while he was going down, less force was behind the ball. So the drill helps you determine the height, looking at it, asking the pitcher, and then reinforcing the skill with that drill with the perfect height, and then reinforcing it, perfect off-season training with squats. My guys do this in season because they train legs all year. I cannot tell you the difference on one session, and this is a really good pitcher, so he's smart. One session, pitcher stopped sinking. He was able to find that angle, and he was on top of the ball in the way we want. He was already a great pitcher, but the catcher was blown away with every pitch, and the pitcher was so happy. So this is a little thing that you can do in the off season. You can start it now, but getting this skill of the front leg is actually critical to the things that everybody talks about, which is location, spin rate. Your hand cannot do all that it's supposed to do if your body that has the arm attached to it isn't in the right place, if you're pulling backward or if you're going downward. So this is my most recent obsession. What do you think?
To me, it just right out of the gate, you're going to be able to do things like the way I see it, or you and I see the delivery way different because you come at it from a completely different angle than I do. But it's great because to me, you create more leverage. You throw the ball later. You get closer to home plate. You could potentially throw the ball harder, farther. All the words we describe when we're trying to, for me, you may physically show a guy what to do. A lot of cases, I'm trying to go about it maybe a slightly different way, but we're trying to get to the same outcome. I definitely want him to get over his front leg. You clear it up, I think, a heck of a lot better than I could. But those are the things, like the guy on the right and the pick on the right, he's closer to home plate. He has more leverage. He's over the ball. He's going to drive the ball. He's going to throw it farther, lower, farther. It's a lot of good things that come of it, just by one little simple thing. And I think there's a lot to, the angle of that from your knee to your hip of your landing leg, it's huge. And if it's like you're sitting in a chair, like if it's parallel to the ground, you're in trouble. You're in big time trouble.
Yes. And that's what I call it. In fact, this pitcher I'm talking about was sitting in a chair. He somehow morphed into that, and I had to get him out of the chair. And also notice on that picture on the right, the back foot is down. When you're at the right height, you have control over your center of mass. When you're sinking, you've got too many body parts going. I mean, when I watch a pitcher, I watch his follow through. If he's in control when he goes over the front leg, he's in control. And pitchers that are not in control, usually their body parts. I see injuries happening. They're moving their body in a way that isn't safe, a way that if you did it in your normal life, you'd have back problems, et cetera, et cetera. So this is so consistent with, I've always talked about getting over the front leg, releasing closer, but when you really start to think about the job that the arm from the elbow to the hand has, the further out you get, the more you're able to create exactly what you're trying to do with whatever pitch type. So anyway, so that's my most recent obsession. And this is also fits in with today's topic of one, needing to be your best because of the competition out there now. And also two, you're going into off season. These are things that you can focus on when you are understanding that your time is now to improve your pitching motion. So anyway, Larry, great show today. Thank you so much for everything. And thank you everyone for tuning in. We will be back in 3 weeks. This time, I promise. And remember, you can find me at Angel Borrelli Pitching on Facebook, Angel Borrelli Pitching on YouTube. And please email me with your comments or your questions at angel@gymscience.com. So goodbye, everyone, and everyone stay safe.